Yo, what is up guys, Ghost here, welcome back to Stormgate Central. Early Access has finally released. The game is here, at least for those of you who have bought into some of the Early Access packs, or you're a backer of the game. Little reminder by the way, the game is going to be free to play on August the 13th, but at the moment, if you want to play, you will have to purchase one of those Early Access packs over on Steam if you haven't already backed the game, like for example on Kickstarter. But with Early Access, there have been an absolute ton of changes since Frigga, and least of all, we've had the addition of several new tier 3 units added to the game. So I thought in this video we'll go over a few of them so you guys don't get super surprised, like what is this unit flying around and how is it absolutely destroying me. Let's get into it here, and we're going to begin with the Vanguard and the Helicarrier. So already this unit is one of my favorite in the game. So this is your classic carrier unit, very slow moving, only it's like a giant drone with propellers that keep it up in the air, and it's going to be great at sieging enemy ground forces from afar. So it can both have bombers that it can launch from its hangar bay on bombing runs, but it also has a powerful weapon of its own that can attack air and ground units. It costs 300 Luminite and 250 Therium and 8 supplies, so this is a pretty pricey tier 3 unit that you're going to start to see in late game perhaps. So you build it from the hangar bay, and this one is going to require the new tier 3 upgrade for the main Vanguard building. So this is called the High Command. So you start off with the command post, you then have to upgrade to the command center, then you need to build either a hangar bay or a machine lab, and then you can upgrade to the High Command, and once you've done that, you can build the Helicarriers. So you get two abilities for them. One of them allows you to train bombers, and you can have maximum of 3 bombers per Helicarrier. They cost 25 Luminite and 25 Therium and 2 supply, so as soon as you've built a Helicarrier, you're going to want to build all 3 of those bombers, and these things just launch these absolutely devastating bombing runs from really far distances. So you'll launch all 3 of the bombers at once, each of them will release a bomb, and each bomb deals 120 damage to enemy ground units in an area. Now, the way that it works is they're gonna do a bombing run in a line between where the Helicarrier is and where you click with your mouse. So they're not all going to drop the bomb in the same location. The first bomber will actually drop their bomb right in front of where you clicked. The second bomber will drop the bomb exactly where you click, and the third bomber is going to drop after where you've clicked. So you got to keep that in mind depending on where the enemy is. You can target the ground with this. You don't have to target units or structures. So, you know, depending on where the enemy army is moving, if they're backing away or they're running towards you, you really have to think about the positioning. But these things are just absolutely devastating. Now, furthermore, you can also get an upgrade for them that gives you covert bombers, which gives all of your bombers launched from the Helicarrier permanent stealth. Now, I haven't been on the receiving end of this yet, thankfully, but I don't think it works like the Atlases where you actually get a red circle and you have a chance to move out of there. I don't think the enemy is really told at all that there is a bombing run incoming, so especially if they're stealthed, it's really going to catch you off guard. Now, in addition to that, the Helicarriers themselves do have some cannons that they can attack enemy units with. They have a pretty short range, but you can fire them whilst maneuvering around and microing the Helicarrier, so you can sort of get that nice micro play going on where you move into range and then you start to back away and the Helicarrier is going to continue to shoot whatever it's aiming at. So whilst these do sound incredibly powerful, they really do have a weak spot as well. I think Vanguard Hornets are going to have an easy time swooping in and taking down Helicarriers, as are the Shadow Flyers for the Infernals. They're just so incredibly fast, and I don't think the Helicarriers, undefended at least, are going to have a chance to survive against those. So whereas with like Protoss carriers, the air-to-air and the air-to-ground capabilities and the fire of them is pretty similar, you know, they can do pretty well air-to-air. Helicarriers, not so much. The bombers only attack ground, of course, and they really need to be quite close to enemy units to attack them with their cannons, which can attack air and ground, but you really do need to be backing them up with the support of your ground army. So before we move on to the next unit, guys, don't forget, if you do enjoy the content here on the channel, hit that subscribe button. I am, of course, going to be putting out plenty of guides, Stormgate casts. We're going to be keeping up on the Stormgate news as well here on the channel. So if that interests you, do hit subscribe. And as always, thank you guys so much for the support. So the next unit here is called the Graven. You guys may have already seen this one because it was released some time ago in videos, but let's just run over it quickly because I have experimented with it a little bit. So it costs 125 Luminite and 125 Therium and 4 supply. It's built from the barracks, and once again, you're going to need the high command because this is a tier 3 unit. It attacks ground and air, and it always has stealth, but it will come out of stealth whenever it attacks, and then it takes 3 seconds without attacking to enter stealth once again. It's also got a couple of interesting abilities. So Sticky Bomb will throw a bomb at a target ground unit or location, and after 3 seconds it explodes, doing 50 damage, and it will leave behind this sort of oily goop that slows all ground units in an area. So it doesn't just slow enemy units, you got to be careful with this because it also can slow your units too. And then it gets, in my eyes, the most interesting ability called Infiltrate, and this will target an enemy structure, and you have to channel it for 5 seconds, so you will come out of stealth whilst channeling, but if you manage to get that channel off, the structure will be dealt 500 damage, it will be disabled for 20 seconds, and revealed, and you'll actually steal 50 Luminite and Therium from the enemy player, and if it's a command structure, the enemy's top bar will be disabled, presumably for those 20 seconds. And then there is also an upgrade available for the Graven from the Biokinetics lab once you've gotten the high command, of course, that allows it to disable multiple structures in a moderate area around the target structure. So for example, if somebody's built like 5 barracks all in close proximity to one another, and you go in there and you use Infiltrate on one of them, you may well find that you disable 3 or 4 of them for 20 seconds, which can be absolutely massive. Oh yeah, did I also mention that they can teleport? Yeah, they can teleport, guys. So they have another ability called Phase Shift, which allows you to teleport to a nearby location and stealth. So you can go ahead and attack some workers, then go ahead and use Phase Shift, and you will automatically enter stealth. And the best thing about Phase Shift is it doesn't actually use any energy. So if you go into an enemy base and you want to infiltrate an enemy command center or some unit producing buildings, you can then just always get away down a cliff or whatever with Phase Shift without worrying that you've used up all of your energy on Infiltrate or Sticky Bomb. So I found 2 different use cases for these units. Of course, you can have them go into an enemy base as a group as long as the enemy doesn't have any detectors, like, you know, scouts for the Vanguard or whatever. They're going to get in there just fine. And if the enemy don't notice that they're infiltrating a building, they're going to do so much damage to it, you're going to steal so many resources, and if it doesn't die, it's probably going to be low enough on health that you can just finish it off with the weapons of the Gravens. You do have to be careful though, because they are pretty squishy, so if you do get caught off guard, you don't have Phase Shift off of cooldown, you can't get out of there and cloak again, then you may well just find that you lose them all. One of the things you also have to be careful about with this unit is that, just like with every other unit in the game, if they are in range of an enemy unit, they're actually going to automatically attack them regardless of whether they're in stealth or not. So they will break their own stealth without you really telling them to. Not sure I think that's a great thing or not. I kind of feel like you should be able to move them through an enemy base. You know, if you stood a step once by accident and they just come out of stealth because they decide to attack a building, that's going to be really, really annoying before you actually reach the building that you're going for to infiltrate. So they are like a very tricky unit to use. But alternatively, you can just use them as part of your army. So if you've got a massive bio army with a bunch of lancers and exos, they actually stay quite far back, firing their weapons, and they do extra damage to light units as well. And of course, you can toss out a bunch of these sticky bombs. Now, you can't stack multiple sticky bombs on the same target to, you know, do a lot of damage, but if the enemy has a lot of lightly armored units, you can disperse multiple sticky bombs throughout their army, and it's going to be almost impossible for them to single all of those units out and micro them back, I think. And of course, not only is it going to do 50 damage to all of the units in a splash area, but it's also going to leave this sticky tar substance on the ground, which is going to further make it more difficult for the enemy to micro those units and their army overall. So, a very interesting unit here. I'm thoroughly looking forward to casting some high-level games and seeing just what the pros are able to do with these guys. There are just so many different use cases for them, like I've said, infiltrating enemy buildings, you know, not just to stop the production of units, but also just to snipe off central commands or shrines or anything like that. You can also, of course, use them for worker harass. So yeah, man, really, really cool unit. Loving the new tier 3 units for the Vanguard. And with that said, we're going to move on to the Celestials. So the first new unit for the Celestials is actually not a tier 3 unit, but it is a new unit nevertheless, so let's go over it. And it's called the Seraphim. So this is going to cost you 100 Luminite and 75 Therium and 3 supply. It is built from the Legion Hall, which is one of the renamed production structures, and it has no other requirement other than that you need to have already gotten the Arc Station. So that is the first, like the tier 2 upgrade from the Arc ship to the Arc Station. You need that to be able to build a Legion Hall, and then you can build the Seraphim. So this is a flying unit that only attacks ground units, and it's essentially a specialized creep hunter. So it's got 3 different abilities here. The first one is called Condemnation, and you can auto-cast this, and it will increase the damage of this unit's attack against creeps by 200%. Then they have Winged Dash, which increases the unit's movement speed by 100% and allows it to evade 50% of incoming attacks for 2 seconds, and again you can auto-cast this, but I would actually recommend not auto-casting it because you kind of want to save that evade for when you need it. And then the third upgradable ability here is called Resolute Seal, which disables all weapons, active abilities and passive traits on a target enemy defensive structure for 30 seconds. And then they also have a special trait here which makes them take 50% less damage from creeps. So I really like this unit. I guess that's what they were talking about when they said that the third faction was going to be able to interact with creep camps a lot differently than the other 2 factions. I guess they were alluding not just to the top bar ability that we got, but also to this unit here, which we're now seeing. So I really think this is a cool idea. You can basically zip around the map with these things using their evade and of course the trait which makes them take less damage, with the Condemnation ability which makes them do 200% damage against creeps. You're just going to be able to whiz around and just mop up all of the creep camps, take all of the towers, observation towers, and if they take any damage, you can just go and take a health camp, get their health back. You can go and take an energy camp and recover their energy if you run out of that. So this is really nice. Of course, they're also great at just sniping ground units that can't fire back, or sniping workers and that sort of thing, because they are very quick and very microable. You can just see once they use the Winged Dash ability how quickly they are going to be in your worker line or out of your worker line. They're going to be able to get a bunch of damage done there. So watch out for these guys, because I bet you're going to be seeing a lot of them from Celestial players. Now, moving on, we have the final tier 3 unit for the Celestials, the Archangel. So these will cost you 400 Luminite and 300 Therium and 12 supply, and they're going to be built from the Legion Hall again, just like from the Seraphim, but they require the Arc Fortress, which is of course the tier 3 upgrade from the Arc Station. So it goes Arc Ship, Arc Station, and then Arc Fortress. So they spawn flying, and they can attack air units whilst they're flying with a melee attack, but they can also then descend to land and attack ground units with a melee attack instead. So they've got 4 different abilities. They have Angelic Descent, which allows them to land back on Earth and attack ground units, which can obviously only be used whilst you're flying. Then they have Angelic Ascent, which does the opposite. It allows them to take to the skies and attack air units. And then they've got Meteor Strike. So what this does is, whilst they're flying, they can dive bomb a target ground unit or a location, quickly descending and dealing 100 area damage to enemy ground units on impact. And obviously this can only be used whilst you're flying, and it's also a quick way for them to get down on the ground and enter their sort of ground mode. And then the last ability here is called Avatar, and this charges the Archangel's body with pure celestial energy, increasing its health by 250 and gaining resilience to enemy disables. Its attack becomes ranged, and it also deals damage in a line, and it lasts for 20 seconds. And once again, this can only really be used on the ground, so this is predominantly a big, heavy, ground brawling unit, super resilient. It's not so much an air-to-air unit as it is one like a really good ground unit that can easily maneuver around the map and come in and flank the enemy position. They also get an upgrade called Scorched Earth, and what this one does is it allows Meteor Strike to set the ground on fire on impact, dealing 20 damage per second to enemy ground units over 10 seconds. So it's kind of like the same upgrade that you get for the Atlas Fire. And for this one, you're going to research it at the Ascension Matrix. So I see these units being used in like a couple of different ways. Of course, you could move around the map with them and take a lot of creep camps the same way that you can with the Seraphim. I think they're also going to be really, really powerful as part of your army, because not only can you use them on the ground at the front lines, you know, especially once they've gotten that avatar ability there and they start doing range damage in a line, it's really going to pulverize, for example, a group of gaunts. But you can also lift them off or have them come in behind the enemy army, land on the enemy army with the meteor strike, and then start pulverizing all of their light stuff from the rear as the majority of your army comes in from the front. So I think they're going to be a really nice flanking unit. And then, of course, thirdly, you're going to be able to go and just land them in the enemy base and get some nice harassment off. So really awesome unit there. Can't wait once again to see what people do with this. And now we are going to move on to the Infernals. So strangely enough, the Infernals aren't actually getting any tier 3 units, at least not at the beginning of early access. I'm not sure what the plan is, if they are going to get any tier 3 units, or maybe they just have too many units compared to the other two factions. So we're not going to be going over any tier 3 units here, but I do want to highlight some really big changes that we've seen to the Shadow Flyers, because these things, they scare me now. Now you build 2 of them at a time, and they get a new ability called Dive Bomb, and what this does is it plunges the Shadow Flyer into an enemy structure, dealing 100 damage and reducing its armor by 50. This does require an upgrade which you can purchase from the Shadow Cleft, but this thing is just so incredibly powerful. It's going to allow you to just fly some of these, like as long as you have enough of them, you can just fly them into any structure on the map, really. Any shrine, you know, high command, an arc fortress. Really, the more armor the building has, the more health it has. You just need more Shadow Flyers, and it's as simple as right-clicking on the building and it goes boom. So I do worry a little bit about this, maybe more than any of the tier 3 units in the game, because it just seems like, I don't know, for the risk reward, it's a very easy thing to do. You just build a bunch of Shadow Flyers, you fly them across the map, and you right click on a building. Of course, you can split them up and target multiple unit production structures like barracks or mech bay or hangar bays or what have you. And there really just seems like no way that the enemy can defend against this, like unless you see it coming and you have the air-to-air capabilities to take them down. They're so fast, there's just no way that you're going to be able to defend against this. So interesting new ability. Again, a little bit worried about it, but also excited to see how it can be used by the pros. But with that said, that is going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed the video here today, guys, don't forget to hit up that subscribe button. I think over 60 or 70% of you guys who regularly watch my videos are not subscribed. So if you're seeing these in your recommended section and you maybe think you're subscribed, perhaps just check below and see if that happens to be the case. But otherwise, please leave me your comments down below. Let me know what you think of all the tier 3 units. Let me know if you're jumping into Stormgate to play today on the first day of early access release. Good luck in your games out there on the ladder, and I'll see you guys in the next one.